Well, hey, everybody. This is another episode of Model Building Start to Finish. This is John sitting here with Dan, and the SD40-2 that we've been working on for really a long time now is, well, it's coming together.
It is. It is. Last time we did the ditch lights, and of course they're not actually on the model at this point, but they are created.
You said you were going to wait to painting, right?
Right, yeah. Some of the parts I don't actually glue on until after the model's painted and we're doing the final assembly.
Right.
Right now, this is all just, well, some of it's glued together, but like, for example, the handrails and some of the antennas on top and things are just kind of sitting there, as is the nose.
Yeah, it's good to see the stuff on, though, because it gives you the illusion of progress, you know?
Right, right. Well, this is actually getting pretty close to being ready for paint. So, but before we do that, I want to take care of a few last things on the cab. And one of those is the cab interior.
So let me guess, you have to assemble this too?
Of course.
Right. It would be too easy if you didn't.
Yeah. So this is Canon cab interior kit number 1554. It's for the basic EMD Spartan cab, they call it. In other words, not a wide cab. And it has a floor, the front wall, rear wall, pieces to make the engineer's console. I think this is a heater or something.
There must be some seats too, right?
Yeah, these are the seat. Well, this little piece here is another part of the console, and then these are the seat bottoms and the seat backs.
But no people?
No.
This is looking pretty familiar, Dan.
Yeah, this is my cutting mat. And I'm going to start just by cutting out these parts.
I see some filing in your future, too. Cleaning up the flash off the thing.
Right. Oops, that one didn't quite go through all the way. There we go. So the seat bottoms have a couple little holes in them. And there's a couple little pegs on the back of the seat. And you basically just put them together.
Then you use CA glue with this, or what?
You could use CA, or I like to use the liquid plastic cement. So the seat should look like this when it's finished.
It almost kind of looks like a toilet.
So the back of this console assembly has these 3 panels that need to go on. And there's little grooves that they fit in, so it should fit together fairly well.
And do you use the liquid styrene cement for these two?
Yeah, once they're in place.
So there it is. It looks like you got all the pieces together, huh?
Yeah. So this is the other side of the control stand. And this little piece needs to be glued on right here. Sort of. I need to straighten it, but that goes there. This next part is kind of optional because honestly, this is all very hard to see once the thing's inside the cab. But I'm going to go ahead and drill some holes for the handles for the reverser and other things that are on the console. So there's little slots here, and I've got a number 79 drill bit, and I'm just going to drill one hole in each slot.
Are there little nubby, buttony type things to show you where to drill it, or do you just have to choose?
You just have to choose depending on what position you want it in. So I cut some short pieces of 010 brass wire, and I put a little dab of CA glue on the end, and I'll just insert these in the holes.
You know, I can see why you wouldn't want to do it, because it might not be seen, but it is pretty neat looking.
Yeah, it looks pretty good. So this is the floor, and there are basically 2 ways to use this kit. One is to assemble the engine so that the cab roof or the whole cab is removable, and then you put the cab interior in and then put the cab over it. Obviously, we didn't do that on this model. The cab's already glued on.
Oh, right.
And actually, that's my preferred way because I think it looks a lot better and you end up with fewer seams and gaps and things if the cab is glued on and you've already taken care of all that stuff first.
Yeah, more realistic.
Right. So the other way to do it is to cut this apart. And what you need to do is to cut out this middle part, which is kind of the hump that goes over the drivetrain. And you assemble it basically in 2 halves, which actually works just fine because, to be honest, once this thing's installed, you really can barely see it anyway. And like my 5111 model has one of these in it that's split down the middle. And even though I know it's like that, even looking at it and knowing it's there, it's hard to see.
Yeah. Well, it's behind all the glass and in a dark cab and stuff.
Right.
And the thing I'm thinking of is that it also won't ever get any pressure on it to where it might come apart.
Right.
So there's really little, if any, risk for it to fall apart anyway.
Right. So I'm just scoring this with my X-Acto knife, just like any other piece of plastic you might want to cut.
Is this the kind where you can break it apart just by snapping it?
Yeah. Score it a few times and then it should just, well, it wants to flex right there. There we go. Score it and we can clean that up with a file. So on the engineer's side of the floor, there is a hole and the chair has a little peg on it.
Mm-hmm.
It just fits right in. And I can go ahead and glue it.
I guess it doesn't really matter from which side you glue this because you're never going to see it inside there anyway.
Right.
Let me guess. The other holes are for the stand?
Yes. So just push it together.
It's not too hard to figure this stuff out, Dan.
Yeah. And then we'll glue that too. So this heater, I think it's a heater anyway, is supposed to fit over this little square on the floor.
Yeah?
However, this really is impossible to see when the thing's assembled.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to leave it out. Honestly, it makes it harder to put the thing together when it's done.
Oh, okay.
I've tried it before, and you cannot see it.
Okay. So nix the heater.
Yeah. This is the fireman's side, and this just has two chairs. There's two holes.
Oh, is that all it has to it?
Yeah. So this is exactly like the chair on the engineer's side. They fit into these little holes.
Oh, so you just fit them in and
then glue it. Yeah.
Seems pretty straightforward.
Yeah. Here's our floor assemblies. And then this is the front wall and the rear wall. And I'm not actually going to glue these pieces to each other. These will actually be assembled after painting.
Inside the cab?
Inside the cab, yeah. What I am going to do, though, is drill a couple of holes in the front wall and the back wall for wiring.
Oh, right, because you have to have your front headlights wiring go through there.
Right,
yeah.
Right. And it won't really show because, again, it's inside the cab and it's really hard to see. But it'll make it easier if we do it now. Okay, so I drilled one hole near the bottom of each wall. This will be for the wires to the nose headlight and the ditch lights.
Yes.
That way, when the wires run through the cab, they'll be down low and they won't be seen.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then these wires will be for the number boards.
Oh, right. They'll go along the top.
Right. So that'll be at the top of the cab. And this, because remember, this piece is up in that area where the cab, the cab goes like this.
Mm-hmm.
So again, you'll never see this.
You'd have to really be looking for it, like with a flashlight.
Yeah. So I put these on some blue tape just to make it easier to paint them later.
So what color are they going to be?
AMD cab interiors are usually either sort of this putrid green color.
Yeah, I thought they were greenish. I think I've seen that before.
Yeah, or sort of a tan color. So I'll have to try to see if I can figure out which is correct. I think I already figured out the green is right because that's what I used for 5111.
Oh, too bad.
Yeah.
I was hoping you could make it tan.
Yeah. If you recall, I'm using the Canon 1501 thin wall cab kit for Dash 2 engines on this model. I still need to finish up some parts. Now, it does include window glass, which is this. It's got masking tape on it.
Oh, that's nice.
As a protection. I think they say you can install it before you paint it and then peel the tape off, but I'm not sure how you do that because the glass pieces are recessed into the window openings on the inside. There's a little indentation where they fit. So I don't know how you get the tape off if you glued them in. You know what I mean? So I just put them in after. So I'm just going to put these aside for now and wait to do that until later. But I do need to assemble the window frames and also cut out and install the drip rails, I guess they are, for, and then we'll mount the sunshades.
Oh, okay.
So these cab windows are separate in case you wanted to install them in the open position.
Oh, what? Would you just put one or?
Well, you'd put them one to each side because they're split in the middle, and one slides one way and one slides the other way.
Oh, I see. Right.
And there's a side, this side has an indentation, which is where the glass goes, so that goes on the inside, and then the flat side goes out. I find these kind of hard to install, and I usually like to model the windows closed. So what I like to do is actually glue these together in pairs.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to hold them and just use a very small amount of liquid styrene cement to stick them together. And then once that's set, I'll flip it around and do the other side.
Oh, right. Otherwise, you're going to be gluing your hand together.
Right. I don't want to put so much glue that it flows and glues my finger to the frame. So now that I got the frames glued together, I put them on a piece of blue tape with the outside exposed, and that'll be what I paint. I won't bother painting the inside. It won't show anyway. These are the two remaining steps that go on the engineer's side on the rear of the cab.
And what was the reason you didn't put those on? Was it because of the deck plating or what?
They're in the way when you paint.
Oh, I see.
So what I've done is cut away most of the sprue, but I left them attached, and this will make a nice painting handle.
Oh, so you're just really getting everything ready for paint right now.
Mostly, yeah. So now I'll put the drip rails on, and there's a little bit of a groove right above the cab window and below the roof line, and this thing has a little...
That's groovy.
Yeah. Has a little ridge on the back. And also, this has 3 little ridges on the outside, and one of them's thicker. That one goes on top. So this basically just fits in here.
Oh, it fits into the groove, huh?
Yeah, it pretty much locks into place.
But
and
you
then,
have to glue it too, right?
Yeah, but once it's positioned, I'll just glue it with some liquid plastic cement. This is Details West Part 353. It's cab side mirrors.
Mm-hmm.
And after looking at photographs, I've determined that in the 90s, this engine had these taller ones.
Great.
And I need to drill 2 holes on either side of the cab in the front because they mount right about here.
Right.
And unfortunately, there's no drilling template included with this. So what I usually do is after I get it in position, I offset it just slightly from where it's supposed to go and then put the drill in these grooves because at least then I know that the spacing of the holes will be correct.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. When figuring out where the holes go to, there are these very small little squares molded on the cab on the bottom, on the front and the back. Yeah, they're hard to see, but that's approximately where the hole goes for the lower mount. So then you just have to figure out where the upper one goes. So this isn't normally the way I like to do things, but since this is stainless steel and it's really hard to cut with either a knife or my photo etched nippers that I have that are made specifically for this. They don't seem to want to go through it either. So what I do is just get it started and you can wiggle it and it'll fall out. Now that I've drilled it, I went ahead and test fitted one of these.
Looks like it's working.
Yeah. Now, depending on the engine, some of these were painted and some were not. Now, my photos of 5126 show that these were not painted. So I'm just going to pull this out.
Got to set it aside, huh?
And set it aside. Right. But at least that way the holes are drilled.
So here's a question, and this might be helpful to people who are watching who want to do something like this. How do you organize all the parts that you're setting aside? Do you have a little box you put them in? Or
I've got a box that I'm keeping all the parts for this engine in so I don't lose anything.
Seems like it would be hard to keep track of all that stuff.
Yeah. These are A-line 29210 brass sunshades. They're photo etched.
Yeah, they don't look like brass.
That's because I happen to have already primed them.
Oh, you did that?
Yeah.
So they didn't come that way?
No. They come in a set of 3 pairs, actually, and obviously I've already used one on a different model.
Uh-huh.
But what's nice about these is that they do include a drill template.
Yeah, unlike the other part we were just looking at, huh?
Yeah, these holes here. So they mount right in this drip rail, so you need to locate it. And usually they're centered right above the window. On this engine they are. Some engines have them, I think in the real ones they actually maybe slide back and forth.
Oh, I see.
But I have, on occasion, if I've seen photos, installed them, this way or that way or something. But in this instance, we're going to just center it right on the cab.
I think it would look best centered.
It would, but that's, some engines aren't like that.
Yeah.
This one is, though. Most of them are.
All mine would be.
Yeah. Well, anyway, so this is just a matter of locating where the holes go and then drilling through the holes in the drill template. So like with the mirrors, it's a good idea to test fit these. I ended up drilling these out with a number 74 bit.
Yeah. Looking good. Yeah, there it goes.
Yeah. So now you could, if you wanted to, paint this on the model, but I think it makes it more difficult to paint because you got to spray it from more angles.
Yeah, you got to get under it, huh?
Yeah, so I prefer to paint these separately, so I'm just going to take it off.
I guess it's important to note then for the people watching that really most of what you've done here in the past few minutes is just prepping, because you're not putting anything on right now. You're just getting stuff ready to put it on after the painting.
Well, I did put on this part, and, there is one more part to put on the side of the cab, and that's a little cab vent. This is Details West Part 122, and as you can see, it comes with actually 12 of them. This is just one of the pieces. It comes with 2 of these. All I really need is one, so I'm just going to cut it off and then clean it up with a file. So after studying photos, I've glued this part on the side of the cab with some liquid styrene cement. A couple other little last details. There are some lift rings on the sides of the engine at the back of the radiator. So I'm going to drill a couple of holes, one on either side. So because these are right on the separation line where the yellow meets the blue, I'm not actually going to put the lift rings in yet. I'm just drilling the holes for them. Also on this engine, there's a kind of a drop step. Actually, it's not really a drop step because I don't think it moves on the real one. It's so you could walk between this unit and whatever it's coupled to. It sticks out about maybe that far. So what I have here is a piece of Canon walkway tread. They sell this tread as a separate part. You can just buy this. And it's actually the right width for the sides of the engine, but it's just about the right width for the drop step too.
It looks like copper.
This is copper, yeah. But anyway, so I'm going to use a piece of this for the top, and then I'm going to have to fabricate the under part.
What's that going to be? A piece of plastic?
Actually, I'm going to do it in brass. To cut this stuff, I'm just using an old X-Acto blade, and I'm going to measure 2 1/4 scale feet.
Isn't that metal? I mean, it seems strange you'd be cutting that with a X-Acto. Is that why you're using an old one, though, huh?
Yeah, it wrecks the blade, but it's actually a fairly good way to cut it. And actually, what you really have to do is just score it a few times. So once it's scored, what I do is I take some needle nose pliers and put them right up on the score line.
Okay.
And then move it. And that way you'll be sure not to bend the part that you're fabricating. The end that sticks out from the locomotive is slightly rounded on the end.
Oh.
So I'm going to take a file and just kind of round it a bit.
Oh, so you're just shaping the corners, sort of?
Yeah.
So is that it?
Yeah, so you end up with something that looks like this. So that's the top piece. All right, so for the bottom piece, I'm going to cut it out of some 010 brass sheet.
Luckily, that's thin.
Yeah, it's not too thick, but it's thick enough to be reasonably stiff. And I've determined that I need to cut something that's 1 3/4 scale feet.
Yes.
So that's what I'm measuring. So I'll start just by cutting a strip of this, and again, I'm just scoring it with the X-Acto knife several times.
I think I just figured out what you're doing. You're going to cut that strip because you need a shorter piece off of it, right?
Right.
And it would be hard to make a corner.
It's actually going to be going this way.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm not using it this way, but it's actually kind of a bracket, and I need to cut some more out of it, but this is the length that I need, so that's why I'm starting with this. So to snap a real long piece like this, I find it works best to put something flat right on the score line and then hold it down and then do this. And again, this way it doesn't bend the piece that I want.
Oh, yeah, the ruler's keeping the piece you're snapping off flat.
Right, this is the one I want. This other piece is just extra. I've made some score marks, and this may seem a little strange looking right now, but the center piece is the same width as the walkway tread. that's going to be on the top. These other pieces on the side are about 3/4 of a scale foot, and then they taper down to 1/4 of a scale foot. I'm eyeballing this from photos, by the way. I do not have plans. So this is my best guess. And this middle score mark is basically the same width as this anti-climber thing that sticks out from the back of the model.
Okay.
This is an extra piece that I have. So what I need to do is get rid of this part and this part and this part.
Right.
So I'm just left with this bracket.
Okay.
So the hard part is getting rid of this middle piece. So I think for this, I may try using my motor tool. All right, so I'm going to start with the motor tool part before I do anything else, because that's the most likely to wreck it. And also, this piece of material has a lot more stiffness to it while it's still in one piece.
Right. So you want to cut the hard parts while it's still stiff and still easy to hold.
Right, so my plan is to cut out this little rectangle roughly with the motor tool and then file it down to shape.
Okay.
Okay, so I ground and filed this, and actually, as you can see, I actually went a little beyond the score marks. I did that on purpose because I remembered that these brackets have to accommodate the thickness of the anti-climber on the back. So the next thing is to just snap off the parts that we don't want. So I'm going to do like I did before. So I'm holding the part that I want to keep with the pliers, and then I'll just fold this a few times to snap this off, and hopefully
there it goes.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't snap, you can probably just file that excess.
Yeah, it looks like this little piece in the end. I may have to file it.
Yeah.
Okay, so almost there. The last thing is to fold this. I don't want to. Yeah. So I made these other score lines, but I don't want to break this. I just want to fold it.
Oh man.
So
I'm surprised that some company doesn't make this part, like Canon or somebody.
I really wish they did, because fabricating, it's a pain. So this is the lower part of the bracket.
Just like I expected it to look.
Yeah. And all I need to do now is glue the top piece with some CA right about like that. So now the little slot between the top piece and the bottom piece fits around this anti-climber.
Yeah, look at that.
And I just need to glue that in place with some CA.
That's a really small detail I think a lot of people wouldn't have bothered with.
Maybe. Well, we've reached a milestone.
Okay, what does that mean?
This thing's ready for paint.
Oh, well, that's nice. It'll really look like a Santa Fe engine soon then.
Yeah. So this is probably a good place to stop the chapter, because the next step will be to first wash the engine and all the other parts.
What do you wash it with? Well, I guess we'll see, huh?
Yeah, we'll cover that in the next chapter, and then prime it, and then start applying color.
Cool. Well, then I guess we'll see everybody on the next chapter when we're starting to apply color.
Yeah.
See you then.
Bye.